So, throughout all the war in Ukraine, the Stop the War Coalition has been very much firmly anti war in Ukraine and wanting this to end. Now, this is, again, a perfect opportunity to really tackle the anti war left because I really do believe they do not really understand the situation. I think a lot of them do still very fall into this conspiratorial lens. And of course, if anyone from Stop the War Coalition would like to come and have a chat with me, because they say this that, oh, we no one wants to debate with us. Well, you know, here I am. Um, I'm open to having that conversation. I will gladly take the pro-war in Ukraine side any day of the week. But like I say, I do see this as a sort of opportunity, and since of course everything's been going on in Palestine, you've had a noticeable, shall we say, shift, completely almost dropping any and all content regarding, of course, Ukraine, and then focusing solely on Palestine. Now that's fine, but of course, well, the war in Ukraine is still going on, guys. Kind of bad optics, to be honest, if you want to stop the war, in Ukraine at one point, and then you've just suddenly seem to have just forgotten all about that war in favor of, just focusing on the one in Palestine, which, again, fine, you are free to, support that, and switch to that. But, that is still an ongoing conflict. It's not something, I think we should forget about, because it certainly seems you guys have. But I want to talk about, of course, the three questions, or at least what I think any potential debate with someone from Stop the War Coalition would revolve around. And I have watched pretty much at this point most of their Ukraine content, and I've really picked out sort of what I think the 3 points would be in a debate with Stop the War Coalition. So this is not sort of my 3 questions, I suppose, to Stop the War Coalition on Ukraine, or at least the points that any potential debate would probably be around. So before we do go getting into that, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. Of course, there is the Pony Club, again, down below. And of course, there is the YouTube thank you button as well. So, what are these 3 points after my day and a half of going through all their Ukraine content? I really sort of narrowed it down to sort of these 3 points that they were at least talking about before, well, everything started going off in Palestine. So, their first point, of course, is that there should be immediate ceasefire and this war needs to end with a negotiated peace. So, that's point 1. Point 2 is that there needs to that NATO expansion needs to stop. Okay, but we'll get into that when we talk about that. And of course, finally, point 3 is that the UK should stop supplying Ukraine with weapons. So those are, from what I can see, are their sort of 3 main points, the points that they've continuously brought up in their Ukraine content. So let's talk about these points and what I would honestly say about some of these points that they have brought up. So, point number 1, that this war needs to end with an immediate ceasefire and a negotiated peace. Now, as someone who is, of course, pro-Ukraine, I would love there to be for this war to sort of end. However, we've got to look at, honestly, what the realities of this. Unfortunately, the realities are, as Vladimir Putin has reaffirmed himself, that he is only going to accept the unconditional surrender of Ukraine. And he's only gone and reaffirmed this not only since the beginning of this war, but he just reaffirmed it just a couple of days ago. So what you are asking for is basically the utter and complete capitulation of Ukraine. Because if you want Ukraine to sort of have a ceasefire and go into negotiations, that is what Putin is going to say. That is what he's going to put on the table, and he's going to accept nothing else but that. He's got currently no other reason not to accept that. He's not going to be interested in negotiating, because at the start of this war, there were negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and the same thing was on the table: the complete and utter capitulation of Ukraine. So I have to ask you the question: if there is a ceasefire and negotiations take place, and that is Putin's position, should Ukraine take that offer? Because if you, quote, want to stop the war, and that is Putin's offer for, stopping the war, should Ukraine uh, have to accept that offer? That is the question that I would certainly be putting to you and your followers in that. Why should Ukraine have to accept that offer? Because that is the reality. That is the reality of what would happen. Not only that, but you have seen time and time again from history, from Chechnya to Georgia, of Putin use ceasefire and negotiations as basically timed to build up troops and prepare for and maybe in some cases an inevitable preparations for another push, or even digging in and re-entrenchment of current Russian positions, rather than what is meant to happen during a ceasefire, that there's meant to be no military activity along the line, or in some cases, um, Putin has insisted that Ukraine troops move back from the line of contact, meaning that the Ukrainians should abandon their current defensive positions, potentially so that Russia might take them if during those ceasefire talks, which again did happen in the past during Chechnya, and of course Georgia as well. Just the realities of what Putin might do during that time. So that's one. Number two, the expansion of NATO. And this is a bit difficult because different people that they've had on have expressed different things. And expansion of NATO covers a number of things. First of all, the idea that Ukraine should join NATO. I absolutely think that after this war, you know what, NATO, Ukraine should absolutely get NATO membership. I am absolutely for that, because I'll tell you now, if Ukraine wants permanent security guarantees that Putin is never going to mess or do this type of thing ever again in Ukraine, then NATO membership is the only thing that is going to stop that from happening. The other thing about expanding NATO membership. So, do you also mean that, as we've seen, Sweden and Finland join NATO? Do you think they shouldn't join NATO when we have seen approval for joining NATO in those countries go from meh to, oh no, absolutely, we should be in NATO in the case of Finland and Sweden as well? I've also seen some people call for the rolling back of NATO, the eastern expansion that happened for Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, that should be rolled back. That their NATO membership should be taken away. Not only that, but for Hungary and of course Romania as well. Basically, leaving them at the mercy of potentially any expansionist attacks or other, things that Putin might like to do. Because a lot of excuses he's used for invading, Ukraine apply to Poland, the Baltic states, Romania. You know, just a thought, guys. Maybe NATO is a lot better at preventing wars than you are giving it credit for, especially when a lot of you say that NATO is responsible for this. And by the way, that is a Putin talking point. And I know you hate being called Putin stooges. You've made that expressly clear in your content. But when you say things like that, you do sort of justify you being called that. So that would be, of course, my second point. When you mean no NATO expansion, how do you intend to sort of secure the future of Ukraine from it being attacked again by Russia? And what do you mean by the non-expansion, sort of more detail on that, because various different things on your channel have said various different things at different times. And then, of course, the final one, that the UK should stop sending weapons and essentially support over to Ukraine. No, I am against this 110%. We've just seen one of the biggest aerial strikes by Russia using drones and cruise missiles, or hypersonic missiles, on Ukraine. Partly why the initial wave of this was somewhat lessened by Western anti-air defenses. Again, that was a type of military support that you guys said that shouldn't be sent over, and that has helped to save lives. Big part of this, of course, that they were pretty much overwhelmed by just the sheer amount of missiles and drones that Russia was sending over. But the anti-air Western defense measures did work, and they were successful, and they did, even though some these missiles did get through, Ukraine having that Western equipment did mean that did save Ukrainian lives. Why are you against that? But let's look at frontline stuff. What about artillery systems? What about things like the Bradley being sent over, the Weasels, the light tanks that have saved Ukrainian lives on the battlefield? Those have saved Ukrainian lives on the battlefield and allowed them to fight back against Russia. That's the reality. That is the reality on the ground. And again, I think it's something that you guys sort of like to deny, that sending that Western equipment has saved Ukrainian lives on the battlefield. It absolutely has. Time and time again, the Ukrainians have proved that if we send them equipment, they can use it very effectively and have pushed Russia back in many areas. So, and then, of course, the Storm Shadows. Because obviously, if you're talking not sending UK equipment, then, of course, Storm Shadows would be a prime example. Well, what about the successful attack that they posed on the shipping in Crimea that was filled with artillery shells and drones that would have been used probably in this upcoming wave attack? I think Ukraine should have, and we should give them the full capability to strike at these launch points where they've been attacked from, and of course striking these ammunition stockpiles. I think that is entirely right for them to do, and by not sending them equipment, you are depriving them of not only air defense systems, which help protect cities, which help protect Ukrainian civilians, but you are also depriving them battlefield support, which again has saved Ukrainian lives. There's now 4,000 artillery shells somewhere at the bottom or that got blown to smithereens, shall we say, by one Storm Shadow missile, which means that those cannot be used against Ukrainian soldiers. So those are my three questions or at least the three questions that would sort of form, I think, the core of a debate against sort of Stop the War Coalition. But yeah, let me think what you guys think about that. Do you think those are sort of suitable answers? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And of course, if you are from Stop the War Coalition, get in contact with me. I would love to have this chat with you, because apparently some of your guys are up for having this chat before, and for some reason aren't people are turning down this debate. I don't know why, but I would love to have it. Who knows? Maybe I'll find out. But anyway, as always, thank you very much, of course, for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.